Welcome, distinguished guest speakers and friends. Namaste, Assalamu alaikum, and warm greetings to all of you. I'm Ashiria en route from the Netherlands with my family from Suriname and a recent graduate with a master's in management of innovation from Erasmus University Rotterdam. This is the 313th edition of our ICC Thought Leaders Forum. We wish to sincerely thank all of you who have graciously contributed to the success of this ongoing Pan-Indo-Caribbean and Pan-Indian Diaspora Global Project. For every single Sunday, we have been here for 312 unbroken, continuous weeks. And in the past 5 years, 7 months, and 1 week, we have featured 1,252 presenters speaking on 312 topics. We are pleased to have speakers and participants in these meetings from all over the world in different time zones. This weekly forum is being hosted by the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center, a legally registered research and publishing company operating since 2010. And to improve this weekly program, we are asking for suggestions and volunteers. So if you choose to give a donation to sustain the program, Dr. Mahabir should be contacted to provide details, and we will ensure that your name will be placed on our poster and all promotional materials. I'm pleased to introduce our moderator today, who is Shalima Mohammed. She is the co-director of this ICC Zoom platform. She is a cultural and heritage consultant, business psychologist, teacher, and researcher from right here in Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you so much, Ashiria. Pleased to see you again. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Namaste and a warm welcome to all of you in the Zoom room, as well as those of you viewing the live stream on the YouTube channel of the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center. Thanks so much for choosing to be here with us. Before we introduce our main topic, we want to recognize a major historical milestone. This coming Saturday, May 30th, marks Indian Arrival Day in Trinidad and Tobago. It commemorates the arrival of the first group of Indian Gurmitias, the indentured laborers, 181 years ago on May 30th, 1845. Scores of events are being planned across Trinidad and Tobago for this national holiday. Actually, today, events are already taking place. And this is to honor the legacy of our foreparents. On a solemn note, we also wish to express our deep condolences to the family and friends of Fred Negret of Guadeloupe, who passed away last week. He was a tireless champion of Indian languages and served as the president of the Guadeloupean Council for Indian Languages. He was also a valued speaker on our program in March of 2022. May his Atma attain moksha, and may his soul attain liberation. So it's a privilege to welcome you all to today's presentation titled The Plight of Descendants of Indentured Indians in Fiji Today. To understand the scope of this topic, we look back to the period of indentureship between 1879 and 1916, when approximately 60,500 Indian indentured laborers arrived in Fiji. The very first group arrived on May 14th, 1879. So Fiji would have celebrated Indian Arrival Day just 10 days ago. Today, their descendants number about 320,000, making up roughly 1/3 of Fiji's population. Despite transforming Fiji's agricultural landscape through generations of labor, these Indo-Fijian farmers, or those who are farmers, face severe ongoing challenges regarding land tenure. So to give you a direct insight into this reality, we want to share with you a very short video in which you will hear first-hand accounts from Indo-Fijian farmers speaking about the devastating impact of non-renewal of leases on their lives. Navin, can we have that, please?
तो हम लोग कहाँ जाए कौन रखी अपन घरे बोला टेम इस्पाया होइगे तो जमीन के टेम इस्पाया होइगे टेम बढ़ाई नहीं मांगे वही चीज हम लोग मांगे तो टेम बढ़ा दो ना हम गवाऊंगा तो वो लोग बोले मतंगाली बता दी कि बोले जमीन के टेम खलास हो गए, बोले पाया हो गए।
हम लोग तो DLTV से एकदम थक गया दौड़त दौड़त। एप्लीकेशन ले ली ने, $56 भर दिया गए। वो जब जाओ आ जाए तब बताए बोले नहीं हुई नहीं हुई, तो लौटी आ जाए।
तो अब आप कौन सी करेगा?
बस अब वो लोग बताओ बोले घर के अप्लाई करो, घर के ब्लॉक दिया जी अलग से काट के, तो उसके प्रीमियम भरा जे लगभग 30 to 35,000।
तो हमारा जीवन तो बहुत लंबा भी नहीं है, सोचता 50 या नादा 30 ईयर्स हम जिंदा रहे। हमारे पीछे अगर जो कोई नहीं है तो जमीन फिर ऑटोमेटिक लौट के सके चला जाए मतंगाली लगे। तो मतंगाली भी गवर्नमेंट के मतंगाली लोग के संगे हुए के बातचीत करे चाहिए और किसान के प्रति लोग के ध्यान देना जरूरी है।
तो लोग रिन्यूअल नहीं करे हम लोग के यहाँ पे। ये लोग बताइए सर लगभग 10 to 15 फार्मर्स है, हम लोग जमीन में रिन्यूअल नहीं करेगा, बट लोग अनफेयर करेंगे कुछ जन के देते हैं ऐसे, हम लोग के नहीं दे।
तो कितना एकड़ जमीन है आपके?
25 एकड़।
तो अब भी आप लोग के जहाँ पे घर है,
हाँ,
वो भी आप शुआ नहीं किया, आपके मिली कि नहीं?
ये लग के भी हम एप्लीकेशन करा, हाउस ब्लॉक के एप्लीकेशन करा, वो लग के भी लोग फाइल क्लोज कर दिए। बिकॉज हमारे सोर्स ऑफ इनकम कहीं बाहर ही सब नहीं आवे ना, हम लोग तो शुरू से हम लोग यही फार्म पे इंडिपेंडेंट है।
So now that we've heard from the farmers, I'm sure you recognize that there are policy challenges, there's a socio-economic impact, and all of this is because of the colonial legacy. We want to hear directly from Fijians, and so it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Subhash Apana. He holds a PhD in governance and public sector reforms from Swinburne University in Australia. He's the head of the School of Business and Management at the University of the South Pacific. Welcome, Dr. Apana. Please go ahead and share with us.
Thank you, Shalima. Mula, from Fiji to all our listeners, it's great to be back here. I think the first thing I'll do is apologize for having disappeared from this forum for a while. I have been working in the Solomons. I just got back on Saturday evening, 10 p.m. Yesterday we went to the farm, and this morning, of course, the presentation is here. And this has been going on for a couple of weeks now. It'll go on for another 5 weeks. 7 weeks, sorry. So that has been the routine, and Monday mornings I'm sort of exhausted, and so I have been missing out on joining you guys. But yes, the introduction that you gave there, it tells me that you wanted to hear more about the nitty-gritty, the particulars about what's happening with the negotiations. But before we go there, I think I spoke with Praveen prior to this, and we shared our slides, and I told him that I'd present the bigger picture and he would do the one on land. But there'll be enough time for discussions later where I believe that I'll be able to plug in some of the details that might be missing from the presentations. Okay, so we'll wait for the question and answer time to give you some more particulars about what's happening with these farmers and where it's going wrong. I do have idea. I have spoken to people and I know what's happening over there. So let me just share my slides first. I hope you can see that.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, hang on.
No, Navin is supposed to show his slides.
Yeah.
Okay, it's all right. I'll wait for him to put it on.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, let Naveen do it.
Okay, there we go.
It's there now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, so let's go straight to slide number 2. Slide number 3, sorry. As you can see, the focus of my presentation would be to eliminate the link between the Girmitia, his meaning of existence, and search for acceptance in Fiji. This search for acceptance is basically the biggest problem we are facing. Okay, every now and then we are told that we are visitors here. So I'll explain what the issue is around, or various issues around that point. The second point of focus is to discuss the key causes of insecurity among Indo-Fijians, why it is. circumstances have changed, so the causes have changed slightly and taken on a different meaning. And also to define what exactly is the plight of the Indo-Fijians in Fiji and to propose future directions. That's the basic aims of my presentation. So can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, that's the background. Population of about 850 now, 850,000. 62.8% Itoke, 32.7. I believe that's by now our population of Indo-Fijians would be just around 31%. Okay, the exodus continues. There's only ebbs and flows in the exodus. The exodus started sometime, I mean, like 87 triggered it, and it became louder and bigger, the exodus. And so, yeah, every time we have political disturbance, it spikes. But in recent times, there's been a steady outflow, a huge outflow. Next slide, please. So why I'm talking about here, 1879 to 1900, conditions of existence were very minimal. We all know the story of the deprivations, the suffering, the plight, the toil, tears, and all that stuff. 1900 to 1921, there was, the first Girimitas had finished off their contracts, and after 5 years, they were promised that they would be returned to their country of origin, but unfortunately, the labor needs swung that policy against them, and so they were told that if they wanted to go back, they would have to pay their passages, and of course they didn't have the savings and couldn't make that return. Very few did make the return, but after 10 years, a large number, 40%, I think, returned to India. Praveen would know better this figure. But the problem here was that they had actually forged a new existence in Fiji, and 10 years is a long time when you are living under those kinds of circumstances. It's not like they were having a good time. And a new life had been formed here in Fiji. The bonds with the homeland had been broken. The castes that they had come from, they had, those links had been changed and all that stuff. So it was very difficult for many to go back and say that now I'm no longer, or I'm now eating this or eating that, and so on and so forth. And lifestyles had changed. So the thing here is that once they came out of the Girmit bond, what they did was they then rebonded themselves to CSR, the company that was running the show, the sugar industry. And they were still farmers who were farming for CSR, but the contracts had changed. And there were many others who then started their own plots, their own little farms, and so on and so forth, vegetables. The market used to be a big thing on Saturdays, in the weekends, where they managed to increase their earnings through enterprise. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So from 1921 to 1960, there was, of course, a realization that they had to somehow or other have political representation. They needed to have some sort of political voice. And so there was agitation in the sugar industry, political agitation, the National Federation Party was formed, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, we had our representation in Parliament. The other thing that they did was they set up schools, realizing that education was going to be the passport to a future. If there was ever going to be a future, it was going to be through education, because they didn't really have any permanent rights to whatever plots of land that they had. The other point is that remember, Fiji needed these cane farmers, and so because of that need, the cane contracts and the land contracts continued, the leases. Okay, and so when we moved to from 1963 to 1970, the struggle became a bit stronger for equal rights. There was a realization that there had to be some sort of political power if you wanted to make it. Education became, there was a single-minded pursuit of education. There were the families were large. Earlier on, Dr. Mahabir asked me, why is it that they had so many children? Well, I guess it just happened. There was a search in the copra industry, for instance, people produce children because they knew that these children would earn money. Okay, so there was another industry that came up. That was the copra industry, which I am from, and that was it. If you had 4 or 5 boys, you were a very happy and prosperous family because all those boys did copra cutting, and one of those boys then became educated or something of that sort. So we had an educated new generation. There were a large number of lawyers that came up everybody wanted to become a lawyer because, for some reason we believed, and of course it was through lived experience that we realized that we needed to be able to have people who could read, who could get into the documents that were used to suppress us. So we needed lawyers. And so almost everybody wanted to become a lawyer. Whoever was bright became a lawyer. All right, next slide, please. And then, of course, the independence in 1970, we then started, there was political jockeying here and there on both sides. We were happily a free nation, a nation that somehow or other had people across the ethnic divide who shared in the happiness. Everybody thought that this was our Fiji. I mean, Fiji desh hamara hai, prano se bhi pyara hai. We had all these recitations going on at schools. And then we had these songs and so on and so forth. Sada Rahe Fiji Kalyan. It was the days of happiness where we all thought that we were all part of Fiji. And then the tree that was planted by our Girimitia forefathers was in full bloom in 1987 when it was chopped. And at that time, 1987 was the time when third generation graduates were coming out from amongst us. Okay, and we were filling in. There's a lot of complaints about the fact that too many Indians were in the civil service. Like I said, I should have said at the outset that I'll be referring to Indians, Indo-Fijians, and Fijians to clearly distinguish between the two ethnic groups. Why? Because for clarity purposes. Okay, and also I'll be referring sometimes to them and us, and this might make me sound racist, but believe me, I'm the least racist of the Indians that live here. Okay, so 1987 became the point at which we first realized that we were not really wanted here. Okay, and that we were some other grouping, some unwanted grouping. And so the migration started. It was forced. People had to sell their houses for a pittance. Many people made use of the opportunity, and especially ethnic Fijians. They bought Indian properties and they had houses and so on and so forth. It was a good thing for Fiji in some ways. I always want to see good in whatever difficulties we face. The people who left forged the path for others to follow later. Okay, and I'll show you how Fijians also learned the same thing later. Okay, that there is a wider world here, and it's not Fiji is not the end of the world. It's just the beginning of the world. And so sacrifice, hard work, parsimony, future orientation, all these were what we were always looking at. It's been said before, and I say it again here, that the success of the Indo-Fijians, the hard work, the Calvinistic principles that we followed, made us hugely successful and visibly successful. And that became a curse because people began to look at us as a group of people who somehow or other cheated their way to success. Now, you will only believe that if you don't know the path that was followed. Okay, and you will see as I go through this that there is definitely a lack of understanding of what saving, investment, and all these things mean. Next slide, please. So we come to the next big part of this presentation, which is what are the causes of insecurity? What is causing this? What's happening around us? And I've focused on 5 points here. One is the emergence of strident ethno-nationalism amongst Fijians, political marginalization of the Indians, a loss of political voice, land insecurity, as you saw with the video clip at the beginning, and a feeling of temporariness. Okay? There are many families who are just waiting for that opportunity to move out. And it's happening, like I said. If Australia, New Zealand, Canada were to open their doors, you'd see a huge exodus from Fiji. People will just run. And not only Indians, Indo-Fijians, but Fijians as well, okay? Because they also have realized that there's a wider world and Fiji is just the beginning. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are the causes of strident ethno-nationalism? We have this, and this is where the utterances of, you guys are visitors here, Vulangi. The term for visitors is Vulangi. No matter how you put it, I mean, I know that there is a positive spin that I've given to this in my writing, saying that in the strictly traditional Fijian framework, Vulangi is somebody who's a Vulangi to be looked after, okay? Somebody who is a cherished visitor. But then in its usage, it castigates. It's got a divisive connotation to it, or divisive meaning. It means that it's the other or somebody else. It's also acquired the nuance that it's unwanted, okay, unwanted presence. So, and then we see the land renewal thing. It's all linked to this ethno-nationalism. Okay, the problems that they put people through, the difficult processes that are put in place to frustrate the efforts to get renewals and all that stuff. One reason for this strident ethno-nationalism is a lack of material progress. Fijians, comparatively speaking, have not progressed materially as much as or as visibly as Indo-Fijians. Few realize that for Indo-Fijians, having that house and that car is a sign of success. It's something that has to be done. It's something that we work towards. Just a couple of weeks ago, I met this child who came from a very poor squatter background. He used to call me Mama. And this is like years ago in the 1990s, 2000s, he used to call me Mama. And every now and then I would give him pocket money. And sometimes he went to school, sometimes he didn't go to school. But the other day I saw him driving a taxi, all right? He came up to me and he said, Mama, I'm Mechina. Have you recognized me? And I said, hey, yes. And then I very diplomatically, I asked him, is that your taxi or are you driving somebody else's taxi? And he said that was his taxi. Okay. So the thing is, how did this guy who comes from a squatter background, who hardly had pocket money to go to school, now has a taxi? That, if we can understand the answer to that question, then we will understand how Indians have made progress, Indo-Fijians have made progress in this country. I was impressed. I was like taken aback. And I thought to myself, and he had a daughter. He told me that he has a daughter. Later on, I met this girl. She's like 4 or 5 years old. Okay. And from her face, I can see she's happy. This is the kind of progress, this is the kind of focused existence that Indo-Fijians have that cannot be understood. Okay. And the reasons, I'll give you the reasons why it cannot be understood shortly. So a misconception of consumption versus investment. People, when you earn, you get some money. We are getting, for instance, remittances coming to Fijian families. I've seen Fijian aunties of mine, as they wait for the remittance. As soon as the remittance comes through Western Union, what they do is that day is an important day. They go to the shops, they buy stuff, they eat in the little food courts and so on and so forth. They come home with stuff, lots of things. And of course, the money is used there for consumption. I don't know how much is kept for later, okay? But the wait starts immediately for the next remittance from abroad. Now, if you look at my mother, she's 85. She asked me the other day, you need to get your house painted. Do you need any money? That's because she's been saving, okay? So the now versus the future, the consumption is where you do it for now, and investment, of course, for the future. We have land lying everywhere. As you will see later, that there is more than 90% of land which is native land, and people say that there is a shortage of land, and why can't we make use of our land? And like the answer is in the question itself. Okay, there's land and there's manpower. There's lots of people. Wherever it's organized in the communal settings, in the villages, there's progress. Wherever Fijians have taken leases on their own lands so that it becomes individual owned for a while leased. They have made progress, especially in the areas that I come from. Lots of progress with the Yangona, the price of Yangona and all that stuff. They've got four-wheel drives. Everybody is like doing very well. So the next thing I want to talk about is this myth of you will have heard that 75% of Fijians live in poverty. Everybody loves to talk about this, but let me just break that myth here. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so land rents from all those lands, okay, it goes to Fijians. Every Fijian is registered or is supposed to be registered formally in a register called the Volunikaambula. Volunikaambula will show immediately which land holding unit you come from. Okay, so the land holding unit is a Matangali, which is these people are referring to in the clip. Matangali is a land holding unit. So if you are registered in the Volunikaambula, you have been registered through a Matangali. You are a part of a Matangali, and then so on and so forth, right? Up to being a member of the province. Okay, now because you are a member of that Matangali, if any of the Matangali lands earns a rent, that rent will be divided. Okay, so there are periodic incomes that flow into Fijian accounts. All right, number one. Number two, there is a problem with this, the manner in which these monies are administered. Okay, there is a problem there. I'll just read from something I have here. According to the TLTB, land rent is equally distributed among members of a Matangali. TLTB deducts 18% poundage from lease income. So 18% goes there, it's siphoned off at the top, with allocations of 3% to the local chief, 5% to the chief above him, and 7% to the highest level chief. So 7 and 5, 12 and 3, 15, 15% there and 18% there, right? 33% is gone. Now, after the 33% is gone, the remaining balance is either distributed equally by assignment, or through a combination of both. Okay, now by assignment, this part here, it is the assignment that varies, with some Matangali assigning between 30 to 60% of lease income for development purposes and traditional obligations. Now, we don't know exactly what happens with that 30 to 60%, and we've had Fijians complaining about it anyway. Okay, we've had Fijians complaining that, hey, we are not receiving enough money. This was an issue that was raised in the early 1970s by Ratumara's brother-in-law. That's what led him to leave the Alliance Party, Ratu Mosese Tuisawao. He left and that was his biggest political agenda. He said that, look, the land rents are not being distributed correctly. And at that time, it was only 25% that was being siphoned off for administrative purposes. Okay, so that land rents issue is a huge issue. The Fijians will keep complaining, but they will never correct it. Or let's put it differently, they have never been able to correct it. Okay, then we have the Ministry of Fijian Affairs and TLTB, that's the Native Land Trust Board, which is Tauke Land Trust Boards. All of these two entities are solely focused, financed by taxpayer funds to look after Fijians. Okay, so anything that has to do with Fijians, Fijian problems, and so on and so forth. Ministry of Fijian Affairs specifically, and then we have provincial council. Each provincial council also gets an allocation from government to the tune of 1.5 million. I think it is now, or it may be higher, because when I did the research in the 1990s, it was 1 million provincial council, and there are 14. Okay, then these provincial councils have business arms. These business arms invest money on behalf of the provincial councils, on behalf of the members of the province, or ethnic Fijians. Okay, they have buildings in urban centers. In Suva, there are huge buildings, and all these buildings are rented. Okay, so they have their captive market right there. Then Fijian Holdings Limited, which is Fiji's biggest company. Hang on, please, just go back to the earlier slide. We have the Fijian Holdings Limited, which is the biggest company, okay, in Fiji. Then we have the Great Council of Chiefs. There's a $5 million allocation per year for that from taxpayer funds. Let's go to the next slide, please. Special assistance schemes. There are all kinds of, there have been historically, continue to be special assistance schemes. Government paid, when overseas aid projects comes, they specifically, they will be like largely prioritizing ethnic Fijian support. Like a summer occupation of Fijian properties, military, police, navy, corrections, these are all largely ethnic Fijian. Our institutions are filled up with ethnic Fijians, and remittances has now surpassed $1 billion. Okay, and the largest portion of those remittances are coming from ethnic Fijians because they are sports people and so on, so highly paid. Okay, all right, next slide, please. So, like I was saying, that poverty, it's a myth. It is a myth. If you really look at the sources of income and the different allocations and the different assistance schemes and the whole works and the apparatus that is set up, the next cause of ethno-nationalism is social decay. We've got a bewildered community that is trying to come to terms and trying to understand why we have a drug problem, why we have a crime problem, why we have an unemployment problem, prostitution problem. All these are wicked social problems. Okay, I understand that they are wicked social problems and that they will recur. But the point is, what are we doing about it? We see public utterances from the Great Council of Chiefs. They are, in my opinion, they are masters at analyzing, but they don't propose any solutions. I've yet to come across a situation where they say, okay, we will now take action. They will always say that this is something that government should be doing. Okay? And lastly, the estrangement from the church, there's a little bit of going on there as well. So there is, like I said, a bewilderment, and then you need to look for scapegoats. All you need to do is just look across as you walk along the roads and you see Indian houses. And you say, oh, yeah, see, these guys are the reason, or they are doing something. This accumulation that they are showing, this success, so-called success that they are showing, must be coming from doing some sort of cheating. Okay, and these people, and of course, religious differences tell them that they are the chosen people. All right, so you know, there must be something wrong. Next slide, please. The third reason for this strident ethno-nationalism, like I said, strident. It's a call for assistance. It's a call of distress. What I'm talking about here, this ethno-nationalism, and it comes out in political lines and all that stuff, and pronouncements and all that stuff, which, you know, in some ways attempts to throw the blame somewhere. There's a lack of leadership amongst the Fijians. People will disagree with me, but I tell you, after every election, the Fijian polity fractures. Come the next elections, we will have a number of Fijian political parties. Okay, and you will see the same happening shortly when we have elections in Fiji. There's this strong belief that Rambuka will march back into parliament, that Biman Chand will march back into parliament. Forget about it. Forget about it. Biman will take the National Federation Party 6 feet underground and he'll go with it. Okay, and Rambuka, same story. He will be stabbed and liumurid. Liumuri is age piche. He'll be liumurid by his own people in the next elections, even though he doesn't believe it now. Okay, because it has been done before. It'll be in 1999 repeating itself when Reddy and Rambuka tried and it didn't work. This time it's Rambuka and Biman who are trying, and you will see what happens. Traditional structures are failing, even though we keep talking about it. We say that, you know, like Council of Chiefs will bring this and that, and nothing is happening. And Fijians are themselves becoming disaffected. All you have to do is go on social media and you will see the kinds of statements that are made from behind the veil is very different from what we expect. Okay, this provincialism is on the rise, which means that we don't think national, we think provincial. Okay, and so Rambuka has been playing this factional politics. Recently, just 3 days ago, he brought it back in minister for sports who had been caught out, you know, in some sort of grifting. And he brought him back simply because he knows that in the next elections, he will need support from where he comes from, political support from where he comes from. So provincialism, this is the kind of thing that Rambuka, that's his legacy, Rambuka's legacy. Parochial politics, you're looking only at ethno-nationalistic issues and provincial issues, like I said. And Fijians also understand how to fast track and to power and the link between power and wealth these days. There's nothing, there's always groups of Fijians around the national leaders who are there for for self. Okay. And corruption is rife. Okay. Because once you're doing that, corruption is a part and parcel of it. And we're having that. We've neutralized the FICAC, Independent Commission Against Crime, which is supposed to be a body that is keeping an eye on stuff that police can't detect. But it's compromised. It has been compromised right from the beginning. As soon as Rambuka took over, it's been compromised. Previously, of course, it was being used for, and I don't want to go there, but to keep matters as balanced as possible. The previous government also is not free of blame on this front. Can we go to the next? Now, when we talk about political marginalization, we have to go back and see what was happening before. When we had independence, the two leaders from the two sides came together, and that's what led to independence. SM Koya and Atumara, they got together and they agreed that we had our elections 2 years after independence. That itself is proof that there was enough goodwill across the divide. Okay. Unfortunately, as soon as Ratumara realized that our civil service was filled up with Indo-Fijians and there were not enough Fijians educated enough to be eligible to join the civil service, he talked about affirmative action in education for Fijians. And the first thing that we did was we jumped up in parliament and said, if you guys need affirmative action, we also need affirmative action in education. Okay. And that's where the divorce came, and the divorce remained. The two parties never reconciled. Okay. So adversarial politics grated against the Fijian psyche. They could not understand why we were making so much noise in parliament, why we were making so many demands. They said, why are these people doing this? In fact, Ratumara himself became so exasperated when the 2000 coup happened. Sorry, when he lost in 1987, he said, I really don't know what they want. By they, he meant the Indo-Fijians. Okay, that's what he said. The trust between the two communities needed grounding and nurturing. I mentioned shared conditions of existence. We didn't have that, and it was prohibited by the colonial regime. Then there was no real time for it, but now we do have it in places around that are around the main town centers. We do have shared existence, and there's intermarriage. People understand each other because they share the same conditions of existence. The same things that affect the Indian family affects the Fijian family, and they look at each other for support. So that is happening, but it's happening now. It's happening a bit too late. Okay. Political power in the hands of foreigners was another issue. They could not trust us. They could not trust us because we were always opposing without trying to understand what they wanted. Okay. And of course, we've had the land issue in the center of this. It's something. It's a bargaining national concern. From national concern to a bargaining chip for power. Right now, when we talk about these things, say, oh yeah, you need it. You have to somehow or other. And the importance of the Indo-Fijian vote is also recognized because that's a huge chunk. Whichever way it goes, that party then comes into power. So that party is now being acutely understood. Let's go to the next slide, please. So like I said, we don't have a leader who can cross the ethnic divide. Biman has shown that he's unable to do it. These problems, that the clip that we just saw, what has Biman done about it? Has he made an attempt to address that issue? Will he be able to make a dent? I don't think so. Mahendra Chaudhary, he plays the old adversarial politics, unfortunately. The man has his strengths and weaknesses, but like relevance now, I don't know. Does that type of politics, will it work now? I don't think so. We also don't know how to prioritize political issues. We point at the wrong things. For example, when we are told that you have been called Fijian, but you're not Fijian, I think we should just leave it so that whole idea loses currency. Okay? Forget about it. Who wants to be called Fijian anyway? You guys can keep that tag. But nobody has the courage to say that. Once you say that as a political leader, that particular point loses currency. I know the principle is lost, but Forget about it. It's too small a thing to go for. National Bank, remember how the National Bank went up, belly up, and we keep pointing and say, oh, you Fijians ate up the National Bank. Come on, for how long will you keep saying that? What good comes out of pointing that out? Was it only the Fijians who ate up the National Bank? What about the big Indians who took money out of it? Supermarkets, Bikumar, Bajpai, big time. Okay, yes, there were a large number of Fijians, but then there were a small number of Indians as well who took large amounts. Yeah. Then we talk about the in Toko Tavoa, there's a 99-year native lease. We want to take them to court. Okay, it's going to court. It's now in court. I mean, isn't it obvious that you having a 99-year native lease doesn't make any sense? Sorry, 999. That's wrong. 999-year native lease. Okay, not 99. It's supposed to be. It's a typo. That case is in court. What good will it do to the rest of us? What good will it do to race relations in this country? Like I said, I just used these 3 points, these 3 cases, to highlight that we don't know what to prioritize and what not to prioritize. Okay, and of course, over time, whatever we say has begun to sound like noise, useless. It's nothing serious. Just let it be noise, and it'll die down. It'll just go away. Next slide, please. So the Indo-Fijian plight. I mean, I've got that question mark there. Yes, there is a huge issue with land lease renewals, but aside from that, what do we want? Okay, we have political marginalization. We've become a political pawn. There's a sense of insecurity, lack of acceptance. But there's this example of Luvendra Naratu. This is a case of the descendants of the survivors of the Syria Jahaj. Syria Jahaj capsized, and the descendants, I was part of the team that was led by the Minister, Honorable Sashi Kiran, that went to the right village. There was a group that came from New Zealand, and because it capsized on Nasalai Reef, they went to Nasalai village, which was not really the village that they should have gone to. The village that really was in the center of this, amongst 2 other villages, was the village of Nambundrau. So we went to Nambundrau village, okay? And I went there as a translator. 2 of us, me and my cousin, we went there as translators. So when we went there, the Ratuiso and Damdamu, the chief, we made the traditional presentations and so on and so forth. And that's when he said that we looked after these people. We were the ones who actually went into the sea to bring them the survivors and so on and so forth. This is Fijians. This is when they had just barely turned Christian. Many of them were not even believers at that time. Okay, they had touched the book though. They went and saved these people. And so when we went to them, in his speech, the chief said that they were touched, that somebody at least made the attempt to go to them and acknowledge them for the role that they played in that wreckage, in that disaster. And that's when he said that we will accept their descendants as our children. And that's Luvendra. Luvendra means the children of the chief, Luvendra Naratu, the children of the chief. Okay, so that became their Fijian tag. Idavuti, Fijian tag. From there, that thing was taken because there are protocols to follow. So we came away after a tour of the village, and he kept my cousin and I in there because he had been to my village interviewing me at one time, and I recognized him and I said, "You used to drink and fight in my village." And "You know me?" I said, "Yeah, I do know you, sir." Anyway, so that was taken to the bigger thing, the Rewa Day. That's when the paramount chief, Rokutuin Raketi, she accepted them. So these people, they have a place there. Fijians will accept you, but there is a way. And we have chosen not to attempt that. So what do we have now is an unease and temporary orientation. That's what we have now. People are biding their time to leave, but then there are people who are facing these kinds of problems like the land lease renewals and so on and so forth, which is, it's what you have just seen. It's a cry for some sort of reprieve. And that's what really concerns. Can we go to the next slide? Next slide, please. Okay, so I come to this here. This is the economics equation. GDP is equal to consumption plus investment plus government plus X minus M. Ratumara understood this very well. He knew that the two communities are needed. He knew that Indians were needed in the sugar industry. They're not needed anymore now. Okay. But Indians are needed for the investment that they have. We've got a captive investment base. We've got skilled people who are Indians, Indo-Fijians. And this is needed. We don't need to look for funding from abroad. Direct foreign investment is replaced by local investment. It's happening. That was understood by Ratumara very well. That's why he always made sure that the Indo-Fijians were not marginalized. It looks like there are some leaders who also believe in this. And so we've got his son, Ratu Vitamara, and I end this presentation with excerpts from a speech that he gave at a recent Girimit, the Girimit memorials that we were having last week, 2 weeks ago. So let's go to the next slide and we'll see what he said in his speech. He paid a tribute, okay? So I'll read it. The late Turana Tueneu and first Prime Minister of Fiji, Ratu Serka Mara, that's his father, understood perhaps more deeply than any leader of his generation that Fiji's greatness could only ever be a shared greatness. He was a paramount chief of the Itoke, yet he governed always for a Fiji larger than any single race, any single province, any single faith. The multiracial covenant he championed throughout his life was a moral conviction shaped by the wisdom of his vanua, that a chief's manner grows by the breadth of those he shelters. He extended that shelter to all of Fiji. That was Ratumara. Okay, and his son is giving this speech. And I think I know who are the writers behind this speech. Anyway, let's go to the next one. His partnership with the leaders of the Indo-Fijian community, built across decades of dialogue, trust, and shared purpose, stands as one of the greatest gifts to this nation. It is a covenant that people of Lau, that's the province that he comes from, hold sacred, and today we reaffirm it. This is their paramount chief who's speaking, the father's son. Those who stayed when they could have left, who invested in Fiji when others lost faith, who raised their children to love this land as their own. Their loyalty to Fiji has been tested many times. Their resilience is a source of national pride. Next. To our Indo-Fijian brothers and sisters, you are not guests in Fiji. You are Fiji. The sacrifice of your forebears has purchased your belonging here in full and forever. No politics, no circumstance, no passage of power should ever cause you to doubt that truth. To our Itoke communities, our identity, our culture, and our vanua, these are not threatened by the flourishing of our neighbors. These are not threatened by the flourishing of our neighbors. A confident people does not fear the happiness of others. Fiji is large enough in spirit to hold us all. A nation that draws from many wells does not run dry. It deepens. This is coming from a paramount chief who has recently returned. Let's go to the last slide. He's recently returned. He was in exile in Tonga. The Fijians are leaderless, like I said. And you can see, and also the Indian vote is very important. So you can see that there's a possibility of Ratu Vitamara becoming the next person who challenges Rambuka for leadership. I don't know, but this is just a forecast that I'm making. So in summary, my presentation, I hope I haven't talked for too long. We have a deprived and segregated history between the two communities. We were kept away. We were not allowed to intermarry. I don't know if I share this small example with you. There was a guy who ran away with a Fijian girl, an Indo-Fijian guy during the 1950s or something like that, who ran away with a Fijian girl and went and lived in their village. The police went and got him and put him in jail. Okay, you've only heard about these things happening in apartheid South Africa. It was happening here as well. Okay, and the second point that I emphasized in my presentation is adversarial politics. We always were doing adversarial, engaging in that Westminster style. Unfortunately, the Fijians are more, they want consensus, they want discussion, dialogue, and then through that to come to consensus. That's what they have in their DNA. There needs to be a rapprochement, but there's very little time. And wherever we tried it, it didn't, there wasn't enough time for it to really take root. The political landscape has changed, like I said. The Fijians have now realized in many ways they understand that the link between power and money. They also understand the need for money, but unfortunately, the land that is lying idle, they don't know how to unlock the potential of that land. So the search for meaningful coexistence continues. What does the future hold for us? I think there's going to be a huge exodus, a continuing exodus. But those who can will remain. There are those who go and then talk about Fiji. I mean, when they leave, everywhere I've gone to in New Zealand and Australia, people talk about the mango tree that they had in their compound, the little creek that was there, and the imli tree that was there, and the jangli murga and the prawns and all that stuff. Nothing in Australia or New Zealand or Canada tastes better than what they had. So they have left Fiji, but Fiji has not left them. And many of the tourists, a large chunk of tourists that come to Fiji are Indo-Fijians who are returning to their homeland. And when they come, they spend. So people have to understand all these other things as well. I think I have spoken enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that expose. Very, very interesting. These are facts. And of course, it's a different system from what we are accustomed to here. The corruption, though, yeah, we're very familiar with that. And what I find interesting is that you keep saying the Fijians, the Fijians, the Fijians, and I'm saying to myself, but Dr. Apana, you are Fijian, and yet you say the Fijians referring to the other. I find that
Remember the proviso that I said earlier that I will be speaking in these terms and that I do apologize for it.
No, there's no need to apologize. This is I'm just reflecting on what that really means. There's a deeper
Yes.
meaning to it.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about it a little later on. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please hold your questions and hold your comments. Let's just hear from the next speaker, after which we will have the open Q&A, and I'll ask everyone to please raise their electronic hand so that they can go ahead and ask their questions. Let me introduce to you our second speaker, and this is Pravin Kumar, who lives in Australia, but was originally from Fiji. He's a human resources and industrial relations manager who's just completed research on the 2 sugar mills on the island of, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Tauni in Fiji in the South Pacific Ocean. Mr. Kumar, you could probably correct me with that pronunciation. Welcome. Please
You are
go
right,
ahead.
Taviuni. That's where Subhasapanna comes from. And my background is actually the sugar mill that was built in Taviuni, which is a place called Sila Levu. And the background where the waves are, that's where the actual jetty or wharf was to load off the girmitias and to export sugar. So yeah, thank you. So can we have the slide?
Navin.
So yeah, once again, Ram Ram Namaste, Walaikum Salam and Bula to all the audience. You can go to the next slide. So yeah, my emphasis will be on basically the land issue, and I will cover the land issues right from the time the Girmitias came to Fiji and where we are at present moment. So the Indo-Fijians are basically a landless community, and the land issues go back from the time they came to Fiji. So everyone knows we came on 14th May 1879, and from 1895, the growth of sugarcane industry began to increase in Fiji. And that was with the Colonial Sugar Refining Company building a sugar mill in Nosuri. And there was a very large sugar mill run by Vancouver Sugar Mill in Navua. And from 1910, the demand for land to grow sugarcane continued in Fiji. And the land composition in Fiji was as follows. So can we go to the next slide? So during that time, the native land was about 83%. The crown land was about 8.5%, and freehold land was about 8.5%. The crown land was divided into three categories, though. It was called Crown Land Schedule A, Schedule B, and Schedule C. And Crown Land Schedule C was intended for grazing land by the Colonial Sugar Refining Company. And also, lot of the Crown Land Schedule C was on Subasa Panna's island Taviuni and the southern half of Vanuatu, which was for Copra estates for the white people. And then, so the Crown lease were issued for 99-year leases. Next slide, please. So majority of the Crown Land Schedule A and B was owned by white farmers with Copra estate and seafront estates, which I have mentioned. And also on Vitilevu, where I come from, there were areas of Crown land where the first white settlers came into being. And that's where those land became Crown Land Schedule C. So no guarantee was given for the Crown Land Schedule A and B lease would be renewed when the leases expired after 99 years. And such were the case when the 99-year leases began to expire in year 2000. And that was when George Speights coup took place in May 2000. And then soon after, the Crown Land Schedule A and B were converted to native land. And many of my relations actually lived on Crown Land Schedule A and B, and they were converted to native land. And after about 5 years of negotiations, they were then given only 30-year leases, which are going to expire by 2030 and 2035. Next slide, please. So the native leases, which I said earlier on, they began to expire from 2000 to 2006, were only granted 30-year leases. It was when the Bainimarama government came into power in 2006 that they made an amendment in Parliament, and with the TLTB, or the Native Land Trust Board, as many people know, that 50-year leases were granted to provide some security for the sugarcane farmers and rice farmers and other farmers in Fiji. And as I said before, a significant portion of the leases that expired in 2000 and 2005 are going to expire in 2030 and 2035. And my last visit to Fiji in August and September last year, I interviewed a number of farmers both in Western Vitilevu and also in Vanuatu, where the Matangalis have already notified the tenants or the farmers that the leases are not going to be renewed for them. So next slide, please. And as you already saw on that video clip, the Matangalis or land-owning clans will either not renew the lease or demand 30,000 to 50,000 goodwill money, or in some cases, the amount of goodwill will be for a quarter acre or half an acre block just for the house or dwelling, which already exist. And in most cases, the leases will not be renewed, though in some cases, the government of the day is providing some funding to provide money for the goodwill, so that at least the Indian farmers will not be evicted, but at least they will have the house. And I will go later about compensation as per the Native Land Trust Board and ELTO and ELTA, which were formed in 1976 and 1977. Next slide, please. So there has been a change, and I knew that there has been changes, but I did talk with Subhasa Panna only on, I think, Friday. And there has been what they call a land buyback scheme, which began with the Sitiveni Rambuka government when they came into power way back in 1990s. And then even after that, there has been funding allocated to the tune of, I think, $15 to $20 million to buy freehold land, and then it will then be converted into native land. So from 2000 till now, the native land actually stands close to about 93%. Crown Land Schedule C stands at about 5% of the total land in Fiji. And freehold, which was about 8.5%, now is only around 2%, of which the Indians or the Indo-Fijians own only 0.5% of the freehold land in Fiji. So what has happened over the years is that Crown Land Schedule A and B have disappeared, and landlessness will raise its ugly head again in 2030 and 2035, mostly in Western Viti Levu and Vanua Levu in the sugarcane belts. This will lead to a rural urban drift once more, with Indo-Fijians' livelihood being uprooted once more. Next slide, please. So the first round of non-renewal of native land leases began in 1994 on the second largest island of Vanua Levu and continued till 2000. And this has been witnessed with the decline of sugarcane production from 4.5 million tons to now about 1.4 million tons in Fiji. This has been a huge decline. And if you look at the sugar earnings from, say, 1999 till now, if those land reservations had not taken place, then instead of earning approximately $150 million Fiji dollars, Fiji would have been earning $600 million at the present moment. Next slide, please. So Indo-Fijians and land reservations and displacement. And I know a number of people from Fiji and those who are watching. This is one area where many people do not know what happened to the Indo-Fijians in 1966, 1967, and 1968 with land reservations. The area where I come from, which is Ba, not the whole of Ba province, but Ba area, the Ra province, and Tavua town area, where many Indo-Fijian or Indian sugarcane farmers, the land was reserved and they had to go into the interior and basically turn the virgin land into sugarcane farming. I know Rizwan Abbas is in the audience today, and I was a very young child of only about 4 years old when these land reservations took place. And at that time, the Indians in Fiji had British passports. So some of the people who were middle class and even some who were poor, they collected money from their 10 or 20 relations and then paid one-way air ticket to USA and Canada, found jobs, and then after 6 months or 1 year or 2 years, then got their wives and children to Canada and USA. That was the first wave of migration. And when I talk to elderly people who are still alive in those three areas, if people had the money and they could have afforded to pay their air passes to Canada and USA, probably 50 to 60% of the sugarcane farmers would have migrated back then. So that was the first traumatic period for Indians in Fiji with the land reservations. Next slide, please. So when we go back to the history of Fiji, and like after 1950, the sugar demand was still there. CSR, or Colonial Sugar Refining Company, was doing very well in Fiji. And both the sugarcane stakeholders, CSR and the British government, and they realized that sugarcane production had to increase, and some of the other better provisions for leases had to come into being. So the Agricultural Landlord and Tenant Act came in 1966. There was further refinement to the Agricultural Landlord and Tenant Act in 1976 after independence, because the sugarcane industry had to grow. And prior to this, after independence, they realized that the sugarcane production had to increase quite significantly. And there is an area in Vanua Levu called Saiganga, and it was funded by, I think, World Bank and IMF and Commonwealth Development Corporation. And soon after that, they had to make changes so that the Agricultural Landlord and Tenant Amendment Act came into being in 1976. It was implemented actually in 1977. So the two acts of parliament and bills were passed to boost sugar production in Fiji and provision of 30-year leases. I will very briefly cover that these land issues was a concern even when Sir Arthur Gordon was the governor in 1879, and he was there for quite a period till he went back to UK. There was a Native Lands Commission which met, and there was a bill passed in the Legislative Assembly in 1905. And then in 1941, the 1905 was more to look at whether the freehold land was acquired correctly, the Crown Land Schedule A, B, and C was acquired correctly, and then I think it was settled. But 1941 was when CSR put a lot of pressure to get more areas for sugarcane farming. And the sad thing is that, when the Indians took over leases, whether it was 99-year leases, none of the farmers actually read what was in the lease agreement. And I've been doing some research and helping some people. We saw the video clip in Vanuatu and explaining in very simple Hindi and English of the provisions of those two acts which I'm talking about. And they said they have never read their native land lease agreement. And no one actually knows that there is a provision in the lease agreement of compensation to farmers when they are evicted or when the lease is not renewed. So I've already covered the part. So can we go to the next slide, please? So Indo-Fijians, if you really look into it, we are taken to about 20 or 23 countries as Girmitias or indentured laborers. We are probably the most insecure race in the world. We own approximately only about 0.5% of all freehold land in Fiji, and approximately only 1% of Crown Land Schedule C. And our population was 54.5% according to the census in 1986, prior to the 1987 coup, or prior to the 1987 April election. Now we approximately make up probably 26 to 28% of the population. And then our number has decreased significantly from 374,000 in 1986 to probably about 230 to 240,000. And unless the government is serious enough, the Indo-Fijian community organizations and religious organizations work in hand with the government of the day. And I'm quite nervous as to what will happen when those leases will expire in 2030 and 2035. Next slide, please. So this is my concluding comment or remark. 60,600 Indo-Fijians arrived as Girmitias or indentured laborers from 1879 to, say, 1920. Today, more than 60,000 Indians or Indo-Fijians live in squatter settlements and informal settlements. A squatter settlement is you are actually a squatter. Informal settlement, and Subhash Aparna can verify that too, is my family needs a piece of land to live, whether it is a quarter acre or half acre. I go to the chiefly family in the village and present a sevu and do a payment, come to an agreement, and then you occupy that land and build your house. But there is no formal agreement with the Native Land Trust Board or the Aitauki Land Trust Board or any legal document which is held in court. So at any moment in time, they can actually remove you, which can happen or can't happen. But there is a case which I read only a couple of days ago in Nandi, where there is I think about 500 families who live on a Matangali's land as informal settlement, and they have been given notice to vacate the land, I think, within 12 months' time. So I've explained at the bottom, informal settlements are where you lease land from a land clan or Matangali with no formal lease agreements or consent from the Aitauki Land Trust Board. Next slide. I think I've come to the end. Yeah, so that's it from me. I basically covered in terms of the issues regarding land issues in Fiji. Thank you very much.
Another excellent presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Kumar. This is really shocking to me. And you know, when you say that Indo-Fijians are the most unsecured race in the world, I think we need to have something done about that. And I wonder whether or not you all have, when I say you all, I mean Indo-Fijians on the whole. Has anybody reached out to the government of India at all to assist in any way?
To be honest, Salima and Subhas and I basically were students at University of the South Pacific. The Indian government really had no interest in Fiji only after probably 1995 or year 2000. And we know that, you know, when negotiations took place for independence way back in 1970, uh, you know, there are some people now saying in some circles that, you know, the Indian political parties should have always retained British citizenship as to what happened in Uganda when Idi Amin kicked the Asians out. The Queen actually intervened to rescue those Indians and settle them in different countries because they all had British passports, so subject British citizens. And you know, the thing with us is that, you know, there's still a very high rate of migration, but not everyone can migrate. But when you look at issues of leases not being renewed, I mean, I have relations who have been evicted. The leases were not renewed. My grandfather used to harvest more than 2,000 tons of sugarcane, was one of the richest Girmitia generation peasant in the whole of Latoka town or Latoka city. And then, you know, the land was taken away. They had a dairy farm with 100 cows. The Fijians took it. It was very sad. So, you know, there has to be a lot of lobbying, and we all are proud of Fiji. I mean, don't take us wrong. I mean, my heart is still in Fiji. I mean, my kids say, Dad, why are you so attached? I said, I can live here. I'll never be an Australian. I'll always be a Fiji Indian. And I love Fiji for what it is. And, you know, we all hope that, you know, there is reconciliation and we can all live together. I mean, it is a very beautiful country. I mean, there are some areas which I went and we did not show the clip today, but you know, the most beautiful place in the world, pristine waters. I mean, and Fijians are nice people too. They've been, you know, brainwashed, as we all know over the years. But, you know, they were not brainwashed when the Girimitias came. I mean, there are areas where I've visited recently. And I wonder how the Fijians actually entertained a whole new race coming and doing rubber plantation. And I'm supposed to visit that area. I will go. And it's amazing. They did not intervene with them. They did not rape their children. They took them as their own people. They even provided their root crops to them when, you know, people were going through tough times. So there was a lot of, you can say, cross-cultural understanding. And I only hope one day that comes back. You know, I cry when I read those stories and some old photographs of 1895 in Wainunu, and Subhas Appanna's mother's side of the family comes from there. And, you know, I've seen old photos where women, native Fijian women carried yams and breadfruits and went and actually looked after the Indian women babies in Wainunu Bay, while the Girimitia women worked 11, 12-hour days on a copra farm. And when you hear those stories and what has happened recently, it is very sad. I mean, that did not happen then. They were like brothers and sisters. So what, you know, it is very sad what has happened today. It is very sad.
If I may, Ravin.
Yeah, head on. Subhas.
I'll just share one small story to highlight what I see as some of the key problems in this lease renewal process. Okay, so the whole process of setting leases and renewing. We had 4 acres of land. My great-grandfather, he completed his Girmit in Kavanangasau, moved from there to Nosori, and was invited from Nosori to Taviuni. Okay, so he was no longer a Girmitia when he went to Taviuni. Now, he befriended a local chief, and the local chief gave him 4 acres of land through a Vakavanua process, non-formal process. Okay, and then it was formalized afterwards through the Native Land Trust Board. All right. The lease was $33 a year, 4 acres of land. First, we set up a small shop. Okay. Then there was a carrier, a van that transported things. So the Fijians hired. When we left there in 1980, there was one taxi, 1, 2, 3, 5 carriers, a large shop. The land rent was still $33 a year. Okay. Now, the point that I'm trying to make is the Fijians are saying that the renewal process should not be based on unimproved value of the land, but the improved value of the land. So this is just one. I mean, with us, there was no issues. Okay. So let's forget about our case. When it comes to renewal, they are talking about, hey, this is the amount that is you're paying us as lease is outdated. It's not realistic anymore. That is one of the key points of contention, and we need to accept that. We need to acknowledge and accept that something has to be done about it. Now, the problem is the authorities don't know what to do, and they're doing it in a haphazard manner. Okay, they're not able to really explain it to both sides, that this is the process that we have and this is the standardized process. Everybody has to go through this. No, they're not able to do that, even though I believe they do have processes in place. What's happening is that some spokesperson from the Matangali will come to you and ask for some sort of goodwill, and you immediately, because you are so desperate, you'll fork up some money. But that money doesn't go into the formal process. That money goes into an informal system, which is not recognized. Okay, so I hope that, without really highlighting, with that example, I've been able to somehow or other illuminate what or where the problems lie in this thing.
Yeah, Subhas, remember when in 1986, Josephat Kamikamidah was the Native Land General Manager. And I went to the Reserve Bank seminar, that is 40 years now. And we had the same conversation back then. And you remember, I was very close with the Labour Party. And Ratu Se Agavandi and Roto Moses Tuisawao and Bavandra, we talked, I think, for 2 whole nights, the same issue. It still hasn't been resolved till today, which is 40 years now, and many people have died along the way, man. Gavindi is there, Moses Tuisawao is there, Yeah, okay. Any more questions from the audience? I think we better answer them.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. But let's take the questions. I see Sharad Kumar has been waiting for quite a while. Sharad, go ahead, please. Unmute your mic.
Thanks, Shalima. First of all, thanks to both Subhash and Praveen for such a wonderful presentation. I have spent 3 years in Fiji. It's long back, 20 years as an Indian representative, as a diplomat representing Indian government in the Embassy of India, the High Commission, what we call in Suva. And I have quite a sweet memories of Fiji. And I understand what Subhash and Praveen has been talking about. The land issue is a major issue. What has been a problem, what I have seen as you can say not as an Fijian, but as an Indian, there has been the Fijians. When I say Fijians, I mean both Indians and the Aiteku, both. So I talk about Fijians in the Fijian terms, is all the people who are native of Fiji. To me, they are Fijians, but yes, Indo-Fijians are those who have Indian descent. So they are very wonderful people, welcome people. You go, everyone will say Bula to you. They are very friendly. But when you scratch a little, the deep divide is very apparent between the two communities. I'm glad that I have heard it. Since my connection has been for 20 years, it has been broken in between. I was with FICAC and then I come back. But I have been following Fiji. So I'm glad that if this divide is somehow, the gap is getting off and there is more reconciliation. But the issue of the land is an unresolved land. And I'm sure I don't want to say anything but both of our presenters know about the state of affairs of the Fijian holdings. We brought at that time when I was there, we brought a major oil company in Fiji known as Bharat Petroleum, which has got exclusive right of marketing the oil in Fiji along with Total, which was at that time the most popular petroleum company in Fiji. And the land was the major issue. Can you believe that for 4 months they were struggling with the native land board to get a land, and they could not get the land, and $1 billion investment was just taken away from there, and they have gone to New Caledonia and some other Pacific countries. So that is the state of affairs where the investment, if it has to come, it will go back because of the land issue. I even know currently, just a year back, one of my friend who's a very big guy in US, and he's a multimillionaire, and he's a Fijian, and he is from Taiwan, and he want to spend or make up a resort, and he started buying the land. Can you believe that for 2 years he was struggling to get the land, the lease being signed? And after that, he has to go to the Fiji village. He has to give a lot of gifts to the chiefs there. And every time a process is there. And then from Suva to Vanuatu to Vittilevu, he was just traveling there, and he get fed up, and that's he closed it and take away his money back. So that is the state of affairs. Secondly, about the Fiji Sugar Corporation, this is I would say, a major headache in Fiji, to be very honest with. The western part is completely this part of the Fiji, like you start from Nandi, Latuka, Ba, and then you go to the Vanuatu. The same thing is there, that the major Indian concentration is in these areas. And these have been earlier sugarcane areas, which gradually it is going down. So several times fundings have been given by Government of India to FSC for revamping the sugar mills, and a lot of machinery has also come up. Nothing happens. Sugar production keep on going down. And every time they have a breakup in the sugar mills, the machinery goes down, the crushing stop, and so on. Gradually, my own assessment is that Fiji will lose its sugar industry in next 10 to 15 years. The way it is going down and sliding down, the brown sugar which Fiji produces, Fiji has got 2, 3 things which the world doesn't have it, I would say. That is, one is the wood, which is the best wood in the world. The Fiji used to have mahogany, which is very much found in Fiji. Fiji water, which is the Fiji is known by Fiji water. So this is another thing which Fiji knows is. And third is the sugar. Now, sugar is the livelihood of the Indians there. And if the sugar industry goes down, there is a shift to the service industry. But the economy is never being controlled by the Indians. If you look into the economies, I don't want to talk about a specific community, but it is the economy is run by the specific community. And then there is a lot of intervention from Australia, which doesn't want that the Fiji should get out of their specific control. So there has been a lot of interference in terms of that. There's a lot of Aus aid coming in, which again affect a lot of political decisions in Fiji. So that is also a very honest assessment of an outsider, I would say. That is what I have seen in Fiji's. But Fiji has got a lot of potential, I would say. That is, tourism is one which is a major revenue hub. But if you look into that, what is the share of Indians in the tourism sector, the resorts and others? I would say it would be negligible. Maybe through 3%, 5%, 7%, not beyond that. So again, there are the multinational companies or big people with fat monies are having control of the resorts. Whatever the resorts you look into that, normally Indians don't have much of that control over it. So slowly the grip or the presence of the Indians in the economy of Fiji is going down, and that's why the migration is taking place. So you are losing sugar industry, you are losing jobs in the government. There are not many jobs in the government, to be honest with. Fiji doesn't have a big unemployment problem also. So people are moving out, and gradually this 50% has come down to less than 30%. It will be going sliding down. I pray that it should not go further down. Otherwise, a great legacy we will be losing out of. That is, the contribution of Indo-Fijians is immense to the growth of Fiji. And that is an undeniable factors. And I would say that the existence of Fiji on the global map, a major contribution goes to the Indian community, which has worked very hard and toiled their labor to make Fiji what the Fiji is. And there's a saying, I end with that, is that the way world should be, the Fiji. So that is what I used to heard, a very common thing in Fiji. And that used to be one time a Fiji tourism punchline also, is the way world should be, the Fiji. So that is what the Fiji is. So I have a very sweet memories. Is I'm very glad that there is a lot of reconciliation is that, but I can see in both the presentation, this reconciliation also comes with certain apprehensions. And unless these apprehensions are being resolved, and somebody put in chat, can we take it to UN or something like that? No, this is a problem which Fijians have to resolve themselves. This is further deepen it. The divide is if we make it a issue between the two communities. So these two communities have to sit together and resolve the issue is. And I'm sure the starting point is what you mentioned, is the Syria ship, where the Fijians have given put their life in stake to save the Indians. So I think that should be the starting point of reconciliation, and where I'm sure now there is a realization in the Fijian community also that the Indians are a very integral part of this country. We have to give them respect. We have to give them space. But I would say the trust factor is very, very important if Fiji has to grow. And Fiji is very important, not only for the Pacific, but for the world. So being in Southern Hemisphere, I have served in the Northern Hemisphere also in Suriname, and I have seen similar problems, but of different kinds. There, the land issue is there. And one last thing I want to close my comments is that there, whenever an Indian comes at the helm of the affairs, be in Caribbean, be in the Pacific, there is a sort of instability somewhere. Somewhere it is look like that, let us get rid of this guy. Let us have this. Why they are there? They are Bulagi. They are outsiders. Why they are ruling this country? So this has to get out. If you are partners as equal partners, and you are contributing to the equal growth of a nation. So if it is not there, then the very much people, they will be going to migrating outside the country. So that way, all the issues has to be resolved within that. I would be very happy if the issues which are there can be resolved. I completely agree with both the presenters. They have made a wonderful presentation. I will say that it's a factual presentation of the state of affairs. And I would say that the politics itself is a problem in Fiji, is because politics is divided on the lines. So you have the Party of Indians, whether you say NFP or Fiji Labour Party, or maybe some new party which has come up. I think it was Benny Marama's first. It is now banned. I think the Fiji First, something like that. And then you have the party which was of Mr. Garase, which again changed the name is, and then now you have Mr. Rambuga's party. So, but again, both needs each other support. Nobody can run the country without each other support. So reconciliation is one thing which is very important. Is that I must congratulate both of them. And I would say that the Indian government is very sensitive to all the diaspora country, and Fiji is also. There is a specific section which is dealing in our foreign ministry, which deals with the Pacific countries. I'm sure they are aware of that. But there are local sensitivity which each government of any country has to keep in mind. So meddling in the internal affairs would be unwise on the part of any government of any country. But yes, we would be more than happy to assist our brothers in Fijians in all ways. So making them, you can say, skill upgraded, investments could come, but there should be a more proper climate for that. Once a climate is created, I'm sure there would be more Indians who would be coming and investing in Fiji. Earlier, Fiji was not a tourist spot for Indians, but nowadays, I'm sure you know that even YouTubers are covering Fiji, and they're founding a new, experience in Fiji. So that way, I thank you, both of the presenters, for being so nice. And I would say, Kumar Mahabir, also Dr. Kumar, that you have done a wonderful job of putting this in map. I'm sure that this way, country-specific presentations of the state of Indians would be continuing in coming lectures also. Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Kumar, before you go, just correct me, please. Should I be addressing you as His Honorable? Were you the High Commissioner?
No, I was not the High Commissioner. I was the first secretary in HOC in Fiji, and I was the director of the Indian Cultural Center in Suriname.
Oh, there we go.
And I visited Guyana also, and I've been in Trinidad also for a while. So I try to study the Northern Hemisphere, the Carib region, and when I was in Pacific, the Fiji was the where maximum Indians were there, or the Indian diaspora country being Fiji there in Pacific. So I have of the Southern and Northern Hemisphere, I have tried to understood the problems there and the challenges faced by the Indians there.
Well, thank you very much. I was very curious about what the government of India can do, and you
Thank you.
satisfied that. So thank you very much.
Welcome.
Appreciate it. Let's move on now to the first Fijian. One of the first Fijians that I've met, Chand. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Shalima ji. And a special thank you to Subhash and Praveen for giving a very clear picture of what has been happening in Fiji. Now, the points that you have mentioned, what I would say is that you talked about the land leases expiring, majority of them in 2030 and 2035. And
Yes. So, yeah. So, what's your question, Chand?
I'm just trying to put some things in perspective. So, with the land leases expiring in the next, say, 5 to 10 years,
Yes.
and currently, the situation that is in Fiji, like last week, I talked to one of my nephews, and he told me that their cane was left unharvested last year, which means they can't get any money
Revenue.
from FSC. So that is one situation currently, right now. Now, the land lease is expiring is 5 to 10 years away, as I said. And with the British policy of divide and rule, as Mr. Kumar has mentioned, Sharad Kumar, it is like both of you know, that it has been the chiefly system which has been operating in Fiji, and what the chiefs say goes with those people. So with all these things keeping in mind, what is going to happen in November this year with the elections, and what will be the position of the remaining about 30% Indians in Fiji? What do you think?
Subhas, you want to answer that one? Because I really do not know who is going to win the election and what type of coalition government will be in power. I mean, I can't make any predictions, though I follow politics quite a bit.
I don't think it'll make any difference to the exodus that's happening. Whichever
I agree
government
with
is in, I think we've seen this for too long now. It's going to be. I think it will become. It is now an issue for governments, whoever government is there, to try to stop that exodus. To try to, there are push and pull factors now. The push factors are too strong. So, until you change the circumstances, the exodus will continue. I mean, everybody just wants to go. Simple as that.
That is true. And as you mentioned, but there is a small group of the less educated and those who are less fortunate to be able to migrate. So their situation is going to be really, really bad in the country.
Yes, Chand, I did a research last year where I did the production and the sugarcane ratio per tonnage of sugar. And right from 1968, it has dwindled. And the percentage of banned sugarcane in 1968 was only 7.8%. And now the percentage of banned sugarcane in Fiji for the last 20 years is around 60 to 70%. Fiji produces the worst sugar in the world because when you ban sugarcane, it takes a lot of chemicals to process sugar into raw sugar. There's been so many reports from Tart and Lyle, our sugar brokers in UK, and USA actually banned the import of sugar into USA for about 10 years. So this problem of sugarcane farming in Fiji goes back like when I was about 3 years old, 1968. I was born in 1965. So when the Fiji Sugar Corporation took over CSR in 1972, the problems were never resolved, from cane transportation to efficiency of sugar mill to reinvestment in the sugarcane sector. And now even like some of my relations were harvesting 600 to 800 tons of sugarcane. None of them are engaged in sugarcane farming. I talked to my nephews, will you go back to sugarcane farming ever again? They say, Praveen, not in hell. And that's the situation now, because you're getting about $110 a ton for sugarcane in Fiji. It takes more than $110 is your cost of sugarcane. And you go to places like Olosara in Singatoka and Kavnangasao and those areas, and say Vunivakalua and Rekireki, why would you want to be engaged in sugarcane farming? And there's no rail transportation left anymore. They're trying to get rid of rail transportation. And so this has been an issue for the last, since 1972. And it is very sad that, the industry, which was very efficient way back in 1970, just went downhill for the last, say, 50 years.
Yes,
Very
since the
sad.
coup of 1987.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
I'm
mean,
a cane
it
farmer's
became worse
daughter.
after 87.
Yeah.
But to be honest, Chan, the problems began right after 1972. The production of
Yes.
cane increased, but the efficiency kept on going down.
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually worked on the sugarcane farm.
Yeah.
So the main thing that is quite worrying is the fact that there are people who will not be able to migrate.
Yes, I know.
And the
And they'll end up
situation
in the
right
squatter
now,
settlements. Mhm.
even the squatter settlements, the way they are doing, because they keep taking the place away, the Matagali or whoever is the village head, they go there and they tell her, oh, I sold this one to somebody else. And sometimes people just have to dismantle the house and go. They don't have another place.
Yeah, we know that.
Mhm.
It is very sad. And these squatter problems, I know when the alliance government was in power, and Subhas would verify that to me, the housing authority was doing a very good job when it was formed in the early
Yes.
1970s for low-cost housing. I mean, I think
Yes.
you are from Sambeto, but the
Yes.
whole of Wayavi and Natambua housing in Latoka
Yes.
were the two best examples of low-cost housing. And I
And
don't know
Rewanga and
why
Sudan.
after 1985, the low-cost housing authority development was not given that priority, because that would have resolved a lot of problems. And we know after 1987, when the military coup happened, by Rambuka, that aspect of low-cost housing just vanished from Fiji. There has not
And they
been
can't
any
afford to buy
single
anything.
low-cost housing development till now after 1987 in Fiji. So that's 39 years now. Very
Yes.
sad. Yeah.
And
So,
there's
so it's a
hardly
terrible
any.
situation, any which way you take it. I want to bring in Nalini Naidu. Thanks, Chant. Nalini, who is also from Fiji, now in Australia, who spent some time with us here in TNT as well as in Suriname and in South Africa. Nalini, please go ahead.
Thanks, Shalima. Yeah, I just wanted to say, like Subhashapanna, my father also grew up on an island, on Coral Island. So he grew up speaking fluent Fijian and Telugu, and so he had an immense understanding and appreciation of the Fijian ways, which he kept throughout his life. I don't know if you mentioned, but I just wanted to know, wanted you to maybe just say something about, there've been several formal apologies, including, I think, the Methodist Church, to the Indians, and which was very encouraging, but then, I guess, not much sort of happened after that. Maybe Subhash might like to say something about that. Because I've actually lived in New Zealand and Australia for a long time, so I'm a little bit out of touch, maybe with some things. But the research I have done has mainly been on the South Indian population in Fiji, and as Subhash has done as well. So yeah, perhaps you might like to say something about some of the formal apologies.
Yeah, the it's very encouraging that these apologies have been made. I think we should give credence and appreciation for these. But like I said, we do not know how to spin this into that process that will lead to some sort of across the divide dialogue. Okay, our leaders have not really been able to do this. And it's sad. That's where we are lacking. What Sashi Kiran, the Honorable Sashi Kiran, her achievements are absolutely trivialized by Indo-Fijians on social media. Okay, they say that she has been sold. She is not actually working for the Indo-Fijians. When if you really look at what she's doing exactly what I'm saying should be done. Okay, and that's the sad part of it from our side.
Yeah. Thank you for that. There's a long way to go, then.
Subhash, you're muted.
Subhash, unmute.
Sorry.
Sorry, your last comment. You're muted again. We didn't get your last comment. Subhash, unmute again, please.
Yeah, it's so sad that I can understand Naidu's comment about her father having the village background. These are the people who do understand where we are weak, where we are missing out. Like I said, I speak Fijian fluently. I read and write Fijian as well, and I do understand. In fact, in many forums, people have referred to me as a culturally Fijian, person. But the point is, and that's exactly what we took to the village of Nabundrao, where we got the Luvendrana Ratu thing. It's unfortunate that our leaders do not understand that this is so important.
Yeah, true. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Nalini. Let's get a question from Kumu Gupta. Go ahead,
one second, please. Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I had two questions. One is that in the US, we had the African Americans who were brought here as slaves, so way back when. And then they had leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King, and they fought for their rights. And today, they have rights, but they are still struggling. But my question is that, so do you in Fiji, do you have, or in any of these Caribbean countries, who would the parallel or similar activists be like Dr. King fighting for your rights, and including today's activists, what kind of changes have come about because of that? So that is the first question. And the second question is that what is it like for the new generation in Fiji and these other islands in terms of opportunities? There is still discrimination, but are there any laws that make it viable or possible for the new generation to attend colleges and get good jobs and get higher education? Thank you.
Subhash?
I'll answer your second part in regards to the
Yeah,
younger
let's
generation.
hear from Subhash with the first one.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. If you talk about activists or people who have fought for us, they have been there all along. There were many, and of course, the last one is Mahendra Chaudhary. I mean, he will stand out in history as one of those who really went for it. And there have been concessions, but like I said, the manner in which we approached this was wrong. And Jairam Reddy was the first big time leader who realized it, and he attempted to work along the lines that I'm proposing, but he lost the elections and he wasn't there for long enough. So it sort of it lost momentum. But then, of course, I think Praveen will want to talk about the second half.
Yeah, in terms of the younger generation of Fiji, and in the last 40 years, and we still witness that people get educated and they migrate, and that will still continue. And now we make up only about, say, 28% of the population, and there are more scholarship opportunities provided for the people of Fiji, whether they are Fiji Indian or ethnic Fijian, and that will continue. Like the times when Subhash and I were in university, getting a scholarship was very, very difficult. And now the opportunities are there. Fiji earns close to $1.8 billion in remittance money from people who work overseas, and majority are Fijians, but there's also a large percentage of Fiji Indians. I did a study on the shortage of registered nurses and nursing assistants in Australia. And there are a number of Indians and Fijian women who come and work in Australia, and that trend will continue. And even all other skills areas in Australia. And, and in terms of when people look at the land issues in Fiji, the younger generation will continue to head overseas. I did a study, and going back very quickly to education of Fiji Indians, none of the schools were built by the British government in the colonial era. And, education was given a key priority. And there are more than 500 Fiji Indians who have done PhDs, and they work all over the world. And that is still going to increase. And, Subhas comes from Taveuni. One of the first primary school built was, I think, South Taveuni. Subhas might answer. And that was one of the, and, we all believe that Girmitias came in 1879 on Leonidas. No, it was not. There were South Indians who were taken from New Caledonia to Taveuni to work on 3 copra plantations and rubber plantations and cotton plantation. So our history has to be rewritten, because they were taken from Reunion Island to New Caledonia and then to Fiji, which was an agreement between the plantation owners. And, I've visited some very remote areas in Fiji. Schools were built from bamboos and, coconut leaves. And people from there have done PhDs and work all around the world. And so now people see, the younger generation see these people who work overseas, then they've done PhDs. Naren Prasad was on the, on the thing last week or fortnight ago. And he lived in a very little bamboo sliced house with terrace leaves. And, that gives encouragement to the younger generation. Oh, I can work for International Labour Organization as a general manager one day too. Just like my daughter, she wants to work for UN. So that motivates people. And, Subhas knows, he has spent many years in universities in Fiji, and he will tell you probably only about 20% of those graduates live in Fiji now. 80% or 90% have migrated, and that trend will continue. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me ask MK to make a statement. And MK, please just introduce yourself, having come from Africa under the circumstances that you did. Please.
Thank you, Shalima. I mean, this is the story of the Indian predicament, not now, for over 100, 150 years. Their mediation is a brilliant way to go forward. And I was wondering, why don't the Indians of Fiji, particularly at the business level, bring in some experts on land mediation? And if there is so much goodwill as we believe there is with the indigenous people, I think we need to have discussions with them and tell them, look, the investment potential is there. Indians can bring money. A lot of Indians in the diaspora would want to invest and have a land mediation process whereby security of land holding is seen as critical to development processes. This is not rocket science. It's been done in many other countries. In South Africa, the South African government had a program that you couldn't do business without being given a long-term lease, the Group Areas Act. We were brought up under that. Our properties were taken away that way. Surely we can use the experience of other Indian communities throughout the world. So that's one field that won't happen just like that. We can't say, well, India has no time or they have not been interested or it's a good thing to do. I think you need positive action. Nothing happens on its own. It's going to happen just when somebody makes it happen. Number two, our children are going to leave. You can't expect them to stay there on a romantic notion of how land could be equitably distributed. If they are bright kids, they'll go to where the opportunities are. So this whole notion of outward emigration is going to be a reality. I think what needs to be done is what the East African Indians did. Go out to the rest of the world, but have your gaze back in the country where you came from and begin to mobilize, leverage your global mobilizational affinities. The Ugandan Indians are doing this in a big way. I've seen one tendency where people say, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that. Nothing happens. Governments come in, some of them are corrupt. It's all adversarial politics. There's no trust. This is an old story. I promise you, you'll be talking the same way 50 years from now. Your children won't stay there. Our own kids don't want to go back to Africa now because they're doing so well in Canada. They said, we'll go there for a holiday. We don't want to go there to waste time. People today are going to look at meritocracy. They're going to look at efficiency. They're going to look at competence. And if you tell your daughter today that go and work on a sugar plantation because your grandfather came here 150 years ago, they're going to say, don't waste our time, Daddy. We got other things to do. We'll help you. If you love living in Fiji, we'll look after you. Because the mentality is different today, and rightfully so. Unless we make competence, meritocracy, and I'm sorry to put it so crudely, I've seen a lot of talking taking place in many parts of the world. When I tell them, what are you doing? Oh, they say, oh, well, the government didn't do this, and we tried to do this, and Indians have no leadership. Well, get the leadership, get yourself together, get 5, 10 people together, buy things together, start working. The Ismaili community did this in -40 Canada when they arrived. When they told the Aga Khan, we don't know what to do, he said, start working. Don't stop crying and start doing things. Begin to participate and integrate yourself and fight for your civic entitlement. So I would put it very bluntly. If you people are really serious, get some top specialists in the world who will teach you on the principles of land mediation. And I could see from Parveen Kumar's heart when you spoke of how much you love the country. I can understand that. But if the people are good, as you say they are, let's sit them down and tell them, look, Fiji will go into the sea. It'll go backwards. If you people want development, the Indians know the island. They've been there for over 100 years. Those same Indians can come in with outside knowledge, with outside technology, with education. They can come back and they have an affinity with the country. But let's sit down and sort this out. We can't be crying for another 50 years and we'll have the same nonsense 50 years from now. You said you were born in 1965. 55 years, nothing has happened. Another 55 years, nothing will happen. I think we need to get an action plan and move on. That's my humble submission to you. And get together, make committees to get together, to work together, buy things together, sell together, have economic affinities with small groups, buying in bulk, buying things together. So you have economic authority and power. If you're going to depend on countries overseas, they're not going to do much. People don't want to get involved in other people's problems. I mean, the same problem will come from India, with all due respect to the gentleman who spoke so eloquently. India may not want to get involved in everybody's problems. Indians locally have to get involved in their own issues and start looking after themselves. That's a simple message I would give.
Thank you very much, MK. Subhash, let's get a comment and a response from you. You're muted.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit difficult to organize, but there's much to be explored in what is being proposed there. we recently had this field of dream. Sorry, what was it that the Rajendra Prasad's documentary that Shyam Upadhyay made into a
Yeah,
documentary on
Girimitya.
Girimitya.
Yeah.
They came to do the launching in Fiji, and the government refused to give $15,000, only $15,000. Biman was the man who had he was the Minister of Finance at that time. They made an approach. Biman could have released that money, but for some political reason, the money was not released. And I sort of found out that the reason why the money was not released is because the wrong people were part of this delegation. And I just couldn't believe it. So I'm using this example to show you what kinds of problems we have when we talk about organizing.
Yeah, it's very problematic. And being on the ground in the university, you could be compromised if you decide you wanted to mobilize, correct?
It was such a beautiful occasion. It was something that everybody should have celebrated. And it's a documentary, you know, it's everybody who watched it cried, came out wondering, how come I didn't know this? Yet we didn't have support from government. Only to the tune of $15,000.
I remember that one, Subhas.
Thank you. Yeah, Pravin Kumar, let's get your closing comments.
No, I agree with Dr. Mohammad's comments. It's getting stakeholders, and I agree that we can get some good mediation done. It is going to be hard work because the last 39 or 40 years has been tumultuous for Fiji. But if we get down to the grassroots level and talk with the Fijians that we need to move the country ahead, and there's so many opportunities, and things can happen, but there's going to be a lot of commitment from all sides. I mean, I've been to, and I said previously, the southern half of Vanuatu has got so much potential for ecotourism, and even same on Subhasa Panna's Island. And there's a lot of potential. I mean, the reefs you see in Fiji are probably the most beautiful in the world, especially where Subhas comes from, between Taveuni and Gamia Island and all that. But it has to be on a very serious note, and that's where I'll leave it. And we have number of expats, Indo-Fijians who live overseas. There are some Fijians, ethnic Fijians, who are very well educated and have their heart in Fiji, and we just need to lobby them and work together and work in Fiji. That will be the prime importance. Only then things will achieve from the grassroots level, because only as things happen there, we can talk and talk, nothing will happen. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. You all have really shared with us what's going on in a country that, it seems very impossible when I reflect on the farmers, what the farmers are saying. I'm just thinking, my heart goes out to them, and I'm just wondering now. I heard you say to Chand, Mr. Kumar, I heard you say to Chand that there's a problem with the rail transportation and so on, and why would you want to stay in sugarcane farming and so on, and Subhash being on the ground, you alone know what opportunities there are. You are saying that poverty is a myth. What would you say to those farmers now?
I was talking about ethnic Fijian poverty.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, and then I listed the kinds of assistance schemes and the business arms and all that stuff, government allocations. That's what I was talking about. But no, there is definitely an acute problem there with our farmers, and this is something that will have to be addressed. We need to somehow or other lobby to get government, like we need to influence policy in some way. And this is our politicians who need to do this.
Yeah, definitely. So, Mr. Kumar, will you join in the lobby? What role are you going to play?
Oh, I'll join in the lobby. Subhas knows my heart is there. I've been doing some independent research, and I do a lot of commentaries on Facebook. I have a very large audience, and I will continue to play my part and work with some key stakeholders. And I think when we have the next government of the day, we hope we get some good people who are actually serious and committed to developing Fiji, and because otherwise it will just go downhill. I mean, Subhas very briefly mentioned about the drug problem in Fiji, and now I think it has become the what you call center for transportation of drugs into Australia and New Zealand. It's the hub of the South Pacific. It is very sad. So unless the economy changes and the livelihood gets better for the common Fijians, things will grow worse. And it is very sad where the country has gone in the last, say, 10 years recently in regards to drug issues in Fiji. So yeah, now we need a lot of work to be done. And
So
the
we'll
Indo-Fijian
depend on,
community can play a major role who are living abroad or overseas.
yeah. And we'll depend on the two of you to just let us know what kind of assistance you need, if there is any way that we here in Trinidad and Tobago can assist. As you know, this platform is available to you to put messages out wherever and whenever you need to have programs to announce what you are doing, that something needs to be done. And you two are the best to go ahead and spearhead. So we look
Thank
forward
you.
to hearing about it in the future. Thank you very much for coming today. Thank you very much for preparing, Subhash. I know you're very tired, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I should thank Professor Mahabir for waking me up.
Yes,
Good.
it was 7
Yeah, he rang
a.m.
me at 4:30 in the morning.
Oh, man.
I was in the shower then.
Oh dear. Let's not share everything.
It was
So
very
I
good.
want
The
to
coordination was excellent from Dr. Mahabir and even Subhas, and we got things done on time. Thanks very much.
Yeah, and Shalima too.
Yes.
thank you. So let's close today's program now. I'll ask Ashiria to come back on. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Shalima, for being a great moderator as always, and thank you all for taking the time to attend and participate. As was said earlier, this is a public meeting being hosted by the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center. Feel free to contact the ICC to publish your books. Remember, we are also asking you kindly to give us your suggestion. If you give a donation, your name will be placed on our poster and all promotional materials. Please contact Dr. Marbia for details about this. Our topic next Sunday is still to be determined. So for now, I want to thank our planning team led by Dr. Kumar Mahabir and Shalima Mohammed. Thanks to our IT consultants, Navin Mangal and Daryl Grantham. And thanks again to Daryl for designing the poster. Please visit, like, subscribe to our YouTube channel to see all our past recordings. Namaste, everyone.
Namaste.
Thank you all for